We Are the Lucky Ones is a registered 501c3 nonprofit organization. Our mission is to document experiences from the luckiest fans while celebrating the finest bands. We accomplish our mission in several ways: writing show recaps, interviewing fans at shows, and hosting a podcast, giving fans many opportunities to share their stories. We are always accepting sponsorships and donations. If you are interested in contributing, please visit our website, www.wearetheluckyones.org, or shoot us an email, watlopodcast@gmail.com. Before we get started with this episode of We Are the Lucky Ones podcast, let's give a shout out to a few sponsors. Thank you to Simpson Yancey Law, Letter 9, and Magic and Glory. Enjoy the show. Hello, and welcome back to We Are the Lucky Ones podcast. My name is Danny, and I am so grateful to be here today with Charlie Miller. As a young Dead fan, I grew up listening to Charlie Miller's recordings. I don't know that we are related, but it always tickled me that we had the same last name, which is why I always selected your tapes when given the choice. So I met Charlie back at Hampton for Fish just about 2 months ago and invited him to join us on the podcast today. So Charlie, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself?
Hey, I'm Charlie, as she said. I'm, Grateful Dead taper, troublemaker, whatever. Work on a lot of Grateful Dead tapes. That's kind of my thing.
Amazing. So how did you get into being a taper?
I always loved getting the tapes from tapers right after the shows, as we all did. It was such a great thing, and I was gonna tape the 1982 spring tour, because I was doing 10 out of 13 shows. And I'm like, I bought a deck and I had the batteries and the tapes, and we were getting ready to leave. And I decided to just leave it at home and just dance and take acid every night, because I was 18. That's kind of what I was doing. So, and I still wanted to tape. So the following year, I was on the spring tour in 1983, the East Coast Spring Tour. And there's 13 shows. And that tour, I was doing 12 of them. And every night for the first week, I was sitting around tapers. And in Binghamton, I think that was the fourth night of the tour in Binghamton, or third night. Binghamton, after the show, I was listening to a tape, and it had Not Fade Away. And at Binghamton, they had just closed the show at Not Fade Away, and everybody was in the parking garage singing it. And I had the doors open to the rent-a-car blasting this. And someone came up to me and said, "Hey, is that tonight's show?" And with like every fiber of my body, I wanted to be able to say, yeah. And I was like, "Nah, man." And, I told what show it was, Greek from 82. And then the next night in Burlington, I was sitting in the middle of a circle of cassette decks. The chain of cassette decks went all around me. And the guy in the end looked at me and goes, "Hey, man, you got a deck? You want to patch in?" And I was like, "Oh, man." So the next night on the way to Rochester, I stopped at an audio store and bought a Sony D6, one of those little recorders. Really nice quality, really good quality, and batteries and blanks. And my mom had given me her credit card. Keeping in mind it's 1983, she wrote a note saying I can use it, and she said, "This is in case of an emergency." Well, I had an emergency. I promised, this is the funny part, I promised her that this would somehow lead to a job with the Grateful Dead. So the first time I introduced her to Bob Weir, when I was working a gig, I looked at her and I said, "Told you." So it all worked out in the end. But so I started recording on that tour, and this is actually the first show I had ever recorded, Rochester, from April 15th, 1983. And the only reason I actually have these is I lent them to a friend who had found them and given them back to me because I pretty much lost all my stuff over the years from various reasons. But you know, it it started in 1983. Technically, it started in 1978. My sister and I went and saw the rock band Boston at Nassau Coliseum. And we had this little Radio Shack handheld recorder, and I was in the middle of the floor holding up the recorder, trying to record the show and caught. And
Okay, so you know, obviously taping now is very different than taping then. I was wondering if
oh
you could
yeah,
maybe share what the difference is between analog and digital, and if there's anything in between that's happened over the years.
well, when I started taping, there was no taping section. We all went by the soundboard because that's where it sounded the best. Excuse me, which is kind of another thing I that changed in 1982 when the Grateful Dead switched sound companies and started using ultrasound with Meyer speakers, because then you didn't have to be at the soundboard to get the good sound. It was supposed to have this same consistent sound all the way around. Um,
Is that true, did you find?
well, I felt so mainly with the recordings, but okay, this is the way it was explained to me. Okay, now I don't know. I mean, I'm a sound guy, and I've heard all different theories. But back in the day, this is how it was explained to me. Like if you're using they use JBLs, Claire Brothers as their sound company, various other sound companies, but they were like a JBL speaker sound system for a bunch of years. And think of it as a big rock hitting the water, and the ripples come out. Think of those as sound waves. So you're by the soundboard where the sound guy is. It's going to sound the best because that's the guy who's mixing it is hearing it, right? So it used to be that way with that one big wave. Then the way it was explained to me is with the Myers speakers, the way they had the PA tuned and everything, and just the way it was designed was instead of having a big rock with that ripple, think about having a hand with like about 100 rocks and you throw it in, and you have all the different ripples coming out. So it's not just that one spot where it's going to sound good. It should sound, and I've taped from various places over the years, and I love the Meyer speakers. I just love it. I love mixing on them too. It's a lot of fun, but
So
that's
you
another.
did find in your experience that regardless of where you were in the audience.
Oh, it just had such a warmer sound. So it was, oh man, I love that. Like in 1983, when they really started getting it dialed in, but in 84, 85, oh my gosh, I just love the way their PA sounded. It's so good.
So when you taped a show back then, your product or your end product was an actual physical cassette tape.
Yeah, well, it started off, we were doing cassettes. I didn't go digital till after Jerry Garcia died. It took me a few years. I'm an analog guy. I kind of still am, but it took me a while to appreciate digital recordings. It's just different because you got to there's an analog warmth that you get from a reel to reel or a cassette, but there's this clarity and definition that you get from digital that's just insane. So, but everybody went digital. It seemed by 1990, except for just a few of us. I would always have my cassette deck, and yeah, I went
Did
through
you
a
ever
few.
run both at the same time?
No, but my friend, a taper, a Grateful Dead taper, Mark Severson, gave me his D5 cassette deck that he used to use on Dead Tour. And I had it restored, refurbished, and new belts to get everything fine tuned. And when I got one of the tape collection from the Dead Sound Company, that one guy Don Pearson, he had a box of unopened cassettes. So I'm like, I got this recorder, I got these cassettes. I want to bring it to a Fish show and patch it off my digital recorder, just so I can have the analog tape and use the digital recorder as my preamp. And I still have the digital recorder making the recording, but I'd also have an analog. It's one of these days, one of these days. It's maybe I'll do it at the garden. I really want to. I think people, so a lot of people would appreciate it.
I think so.
Yeah. just fun. But
So your name shows up a lot on archive.net, um,
org,
archive.org.
yeah.
So, tell me about that. You've recorded a lot of shows, but your name shows up kind of before you started recording shows. What is that about?
I we tracked down a lot of tapers from like the 70s, through Facebook or whatever, and those who still had their tapes, hey, can you send them to me so I can work on them? And after a while, people would recognize my name from all these other things I was working on. Then working with Kimmock, working with Steve Kimmock for like about 24 years now. I got to work with a lot of the people in the Grateful Dead band and crew and their family, and through that, I received a lot of their tapes. And between that and having Don Pearson's collection from Ultrasound, I've got maybe close to 2,500 soundboard masters. There's some shows I've got like 4 copies of, and they're all mastered
Wow.
because they were all different people. I'd have so many different tapes, and the best part is, this is the best part. When I got Don Pearson's collection, in every cassette was 3 unused, sometimes 2, but usually 3 unused backstage passes for that show. So you got 2 tapes per show. So I have like 5, 6 unused passes. And there's some shows like Spring from '87 where I literally have 5 copies. So I had all these unused backstage passes. And the ones from like 1991 are my favorites because each tour, you put them together and it makes a picture. And you put all the tours together and it makes a big giant thing. And I've got them all from '91, just kind of,
Wow.
it's pretty wild.
That's
But
great.
this is there you go.
Oh yeah.
This is the way their masters look like,
That is so great.
and it was really insane when I first got that collection. When it was like 2,200 cassettes. I was a little overwhelmed. I had multiple cassette decks transferring at the same time. But the best part is, in addition to having all those passes, when you've got multiple copies of a show, each tape has a different tape flip. Because there was one guy that was running the majority of the decks because the band's crew was busy working. So Don Pearson would run their decks for them, and he'd flip one tape, and then he'd flip the next tape. And that like 2 seconds between tape flips is all I need to just overlap and have, to patch in. So there's no cuts when you flip the tapes because the other tape covers covers the
So
flip.
you did that work.
I did all that. So if you look, there's like over 1,000 tapes, um, where I have a note that says multiple masters were used to make this show complete. Because it's a soundboard cassette master with a soundboard cassette master covering that 4-second tape flip in each set.
How incredible. How long did that take you?
Well, the main thing is getting them both pitch correct. Everything's got to be exactly on pitch because analog is not like digital where it's exact, and just the slightest difference between the record deck and my playback deck will make this a little, maybe it's a quarter of a percent. And it's just, you want it to be perfect. Some of my older stuff from like 15, 20 years ago isn't as OCD as the
As
later.
now.
Yeah, the newer stuff is just, yeah, I really, I kind of,
And you do all of that kind of as like a passion project.
oh yeah, well, I
Yeah.
kind of do it for me because I want to have these copies. And I was never told, well, this isn't true. The majority of this stuff I was never told, don't share it. There was a few things that I was given over the years where I'm just like, I can't, I got to respect people's jobs and whatever, and I don't want to lose another friend over. I already lost a friend from giving up music publicly that I wasn't supposed to, but
Hmm.
it all worked out in the end. So it all
So
is.
about how many shows have you transferred versus taped yourself?
Well, I guess I saw 188 Grateful Dead shows. I probably taped about 100 of them, I'm guessing. from 1983. I taped in 1983. Then I took a few years off to just get really high at shows because I was more. It was the 80s, man.
Yeah, you're young.
I was, yeah, it's just the 80s. But I started taping again in 1989. And I was in rehab. I was in rehab. I was 12 days into a 90-day project on my sponsor. I was living in San Mateo, outside San Francisco there. And my sponsor said, I'm not going to see you tonight at the meeting. I'm going to see the Grateful Dead at Cal Expo. And I said, I want to go. He says, you can't. You're in rehab. I said, actually, they're about to test me. I had something to drink. They're about to kick me out. I said, dude, please take me. I convinced the guy to take me. And I borrowed my friend's cassette deck, which I ended up buying and using to tape the next 3 years of Grateful Dead shows with. But it all just convincing my sponsor to take me to go to Cal Expo. It was the first time I ever went there. Me and him went the first 2 nights.
Was taping a way to stay more sober for you?
I would drink a lot. And no, you know what? If you look at my tape cases from a lot of the shows in '83, there's razor blade marks from chopping coke on there and shit, you know.
Yeah.
But I wasn't into doing coke at shows after that. It was just, it takes away from the music. It really does, because I'm a recovering addict. But back then, all I cared about was, drugs, so I wouldn't pay a lot of attention to the music.
Yeah. I can,
But
yeah.
no, I'd like to drink at shows. I used to drink, I used to smoke, and this New Year's Eve at midnight at Madison Square Garden while Fish is playing, I'll celebrate 29 years since my last drink.
Wow, congratulations.
Thank you. Yeah, it's pretty
Yeah, that's
wild.
great. I am also sober.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's great.
So let's talk about fish for a little bit. I met you at a fish show at Hampton.
I love that.
Yes,
I love.
and I just wanted to hear about your taping experience with fish as well.
Um. Okay, so in 2004, Mike Gordon showed up at a Steve Kimmock show. We were in the beginning of our tour. It was like a 43 show tour to 10 weeks. And this is the second night or the third night of the tour, second night. And Mike Gordon shows up because we were in Burlington, we kind of interacted then. And then, like 2 years later, we did a tour with Steve playing with Mickey and Billy from the Grateful Dead and then Mike Gordon. And we had a week of rehearsals at the barn, the Fish barn or Trey's barn, whoever's barn it is. And then, went back to Mike's house. We hung out. We talked about Grateful Dead tapes. And Mike and I just kind of latched onto this Grateful Dead thing, and we became friends. And I didn't like Fish. So I would go whenever they were, every couple of years I'd see a show. Mike would get me tickets, and I didn't, I would maybe tape it, maybe not, but they really took care of me very nicely because I'm friends with like a lot of the crew is Kimmock's crew, or I've worked with them on jam crews.
So,
So
so backing up just a little bit, what were you doing for Steve Kimmock at this time?
I'm Steve's recording engineer. Excuse me, and I'm his archivist for 24, 25 years, something like that. But
Okay.
I do all of his recording stuff, and I take care of our live download service. I take care of all the music for that. Um, but I also do sound for Steve. I've done road managing for him. I've done so many different things. I
Okay, so
love.
you were on tour with Steve as an employee,
Yeah,
basically.
yeah.
Okay. All right. Keep going.
And the first night Mike showed up, I didn't like Fish back then. I mean, I really didn't like Fish. I wouldn't let you talk about Fish on the Kimmock tour bus. I wouldn't let you play. I didn't want
Oh
to hear.
my.
Yeah, I just didn't like it. And there's the girl who I don't know if you met her at Hampton, Ariel Farris. She's the one who we were on tour with Kimmock together. I lived at her house and we were working for Steve, and she decided to stop doing the tour thing after a few years with Kimmock and just go back to her regular job. And so I'm telling Mike Gordon about her at the show. This girl that works for the band is not here, and she's the biggest Fish fan. Would you say hi to her? And he goes, sure. So I dial her number. I hand him my phone. And he's like, "Hey, Ariel, this is Mike Gordon. What's up?" And he just chats her up. And then he takes a piece of paper and he writes, "Hey, Ariel, you missed the best show ever, Mike Gordon." Because, everyone always like, "Oh, man, that was the best show ever," and, uh, and it's kind of funny. So, so eventually just going to a show every now and then, I just started kind of, I don't know, I would have fun. I didn't like the music, but I was having fun because they treated me so well, and I knew everybody. My friend was in Trey's band. I used to get to hang out with them all the time, just watch the shows from the side of the stage and shit. And Ariel's like, "Hey, let's go to Vegas for your birthday." My birthday is November 3rd. So in 2016, she took me to the Vegas run for my birthday. And I've seen almost 200 shows since then.
Something clicked.
So it was the second night. I remember walking through the MGM, going to our room, and everybody just, cheering and screaming and, woo. It was a really rocking show. It was a good show. And I remember thinking to myself how proud I was to have been there for that.
Is there a particular song or memory at the show that
Well, in
you
2019 is when it really, really, really clicked. We were, I don't know why, I just decided to let's go travel for fish, because we live in California, San Diego. So we went and did the Camden SPAC 5 show thing from the summer of 2019. And I didn't tape. I left my gear at home, and I got us pit tickets through the band. And I spent the first set hanging out on the lawn and everything with some friends. And then I went up on the rail in front of Mike for the second set, and they opened up at Mercury. And I knew this song as this song with multiple parts and that it was long. And I'd seen it a few times. But my life changed at that moment. It was just, excuse me, it was just so unreal. The next day, Trey,
the Net's
every now and then,
unbreakable?
every now and then, like the band like does something really great and they put it up on their YouTube thing like right away. Well, they had put it up on their YouTube page, and Trey wrote this whole thing about it. And it was posted on, I don't know, Instagram, Facebook, Reddit, somewhere. And it was on all the socials. And he was just talking about it and how sometimes everything just kind of gels and comes together and you all just, without even like looking at each other, you're all just on the same page. It was just so cool. And yeah, after that, that was it. I had to start seeing as much as I could. I went to Dick's for the first time, and then did the New Year's run, and then I was going to do everything in 2020 that I could.
I'm sure you
But
did.
yeah, I had a plan, but um, yeah. So
So you've officially taped more fish shows now.
I've now taped more fish and seen more fish than Grateful Dead.
Wow.
The first night of the New Year's run will be 200 fish shows for me. I would have been at Hampton but I got food poisoning a few years ago and missed a show the second night of the New Year's run in 2022, I think it was. I missed because of food poisoning. So I should be at 200, but
Well, you will be soon enough.
soon enough. But yeah, I've
And
taped
how is that? So,
like
so Fish has a
150.
taper section you can patch into the soundboard, from what I
Well, no,
understand.
we don't patch in the soundboard. We bring our own mics.
Okay.
And but with live fish, the cool thing is everybody gets the board after the show because of the code on the ticket. But I got the high resolution live fish app. I pay the extra money to get the high res because it sounds so much better.
Really?
Oh yeah, yeah, it really does. It's a big difference. Excuse me. Yeah, love my Coca-Cola, man.
Hey, no booze, just Coke.
Just go exactly.
Okay, wait. So the tapers get a special taper ticket, right?
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, they sometime the band's really good. Okay, this band that's playing like Madison Square Garden for 13 nights or 7 nights. Actually, the management actually takes the time to make sure the tapers get the tickets. You know, they'll look on the internet where people post recordings to see what names are on them, and sometimes they use like Team Dirty South or Team Sheps or some whatever, Brian goes under Team No Drama. So it's a team name, So they don't know who it is. So if they don't know, they'll ask somebody or they'll ask me, hey, is this, this guy? This guy's ordering taper tickets. Is he really a taper? Or is he one of those people that are like, oh, it sounds better there. I want to go hang out there because people don't talk there. So that does happen.
I do know I like to hang out with the tapers. So Hampton didn't have a designated
Yeah,
taper
Hampton,
section.
GA. Yeah,
Right. So I got to hang out with the tapers, which is my favorite spot
yeah. The only arena that doesn't have a GA taper section is Madison Square Garden because they put us in the back.
of the floor.
No, actually, it's in the seats right off the floor because the sound booth and the lighting booth aren't in the middle, like where the Grateful Dead used to do, or like they do for all the other arenas. It's pushed all the way to the back for some reason. I don't know why. Um, but it's I like having a seat. I don't like being that far back. I'm twice
Yeah.
as far as I normally am, which kind of sucks being that far, but I like having a seat. I just turned 62 and sometimes I'm dancing, sometimes I just like I need to sit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I loved hearing your story about Fish. Given that our mission is to capture the fan experience, which I think that's why interviewing with tapers is so great because I also feel like that's part of your mission is to capture this once in a lifetime experience through taping the actual music. Capturing the fan experience, is there a moment or a memory, a song, a show, a venue of your time touring with the Grateful Dead that you want to share?
Yeah, I mean, there's a few of them. You know what? I got into Oakland Coliseum early, back in 1993. I had backstage passes that I got once I got in and through Candace Brightman's assistant at the lighting board, Robbie Greenberg. She was helping me out with passes. So I got to go backstage for the first time. I got to see my first Grateful Dead sound check, and we were sitting there in the hallway at the back of the floor. They just asked us to hang out the back, just watch from there. Don't come out. Don't let the band see you're here. So we're hanging out, waiting to go in. And I was starting to pull out my microphones, trying to sneak them out. And guy comes over and goes, Charlie, just enjoy the moment. So I'm like, all right, cool, all good. I had to try.
Yeah.
And they played Days Between, which had never been played before. And when it started with that keyboard sound, I thought it was Mountains of the Moon, which hasn't been played since 1969, and it's like kind of has the same intro. But then they played Days Between, and that night they debuted it, and it was pretty mind blowing. They also sound checked, and that was Broken Arrow, which got debuted the next night, and it was just kind of cool, just getting to see
A little preview.
a little preview. Yeah, yeah. There's, I mean, I miss the Grateful Dead. I miss that feeling of walking into the room that Jerry Garcia was about to play in. It was, there's just, it's hard to explain to people. It was a different thing in the sound they had. Oh my gosh, the sound the Grateful Dead had was insane. I've never heard a band that sounded that good in
Mm,
their sound system in the peak with Dan Healy doing sound. Yeah, I miss it.
wow. I never got to experience it, but it's something I wish I could travel back in time for.
Yeah, most of it was just, them just standing there, not doing anything, just singing and playing or whatever, and not really communicating with the crowd. Every now and then, Bobby might say something, but yeah, it was I don't know, man. I saw them in 1991 when we went to war, the Kuwait, the invasion, the whole no blood for oil thing. I was had a million protests in San Francisco over it, and the Grateful Dead broke out New Speedway Boogie right when that happened. This darkness got to give, and it just seemed so appropriate. One of my favorite things was living a block from the Warfield and sneaking in my taping gear because you weren't allowed to tape Jerry Band. It was different. And yeah, you weren't allowed to tape the Jerry Band. Plus, they were recording a lot of it for an album. So they were actively looking, for tapers. And they knew I was taping. They just find my gear. It was 1989, 1990, 91. You could only search somebody so much. And I was really good at hiding my stuff. And
I won't ask any more
yeah,
questions.
no, but in like, but like he played there like a whole bunch in 1990. It was just nonstop. In 1991, he played like 3 or 5 night runs in
Oh,
January, February, March, April, May. It was like every month you'd go see the 3 or 5 nights and they would announce the next month. It was just nonstop. And I got to see them all and tape them all for like 3 years at the Warfield. And
what a
that was
dream.
that was that was special. Yeah. I was. I'm. I'm glad
That
I moved to
if I could go
California.
back in time and see one musician, it would be Jerry Garcia. But
You,
honestly, I think it would be Jerry Garcia Band,
it. There's just.
probably 78.
It was. Oh, I love that stuff. The Warner Theater show, I think, is the best Jerry show ever played. I'm glad they made an official release out of it. I think it was just. Yeah. I'm glad I moved to California. I really am. I followed the Grateful Dead out here from New York in February '89 for a 10-day vacation and told my family, fiance, everybody, I'll be back in 10 days. And 10 days later, I called up and I'm like, anybody want to come to California? And no, we're full. We good? We're good. And I stayed in California and which led to all this. If I never came to California,
Isn't that
nothing,
amazing? There's these decisions you make in your life where you can look back and say, if I didn't make that decision, my whole life would
I,
be different. And there's something in you, there's this intuitive voice within you that tells you what to do. And when you listen, it pays off.
I would have to be that, dad with a couple of kids working a 9 to 5 job Monday to Friday, just living a normal life. And I just don't do normal well.
I mean, I think it's great going from a fan to an employee with Steve Kimmock and friends of lots of these bands and this
Yeah.
well-known entity in the taper and the live music community. I mean, it's just such a joy to get to know you better and to
Yeah.
have you on the podcast. Is there anything else you want to share before we wrap up?
Um, I guess I'm in it for the music. I'm in it for the music. The reason I'm doing all the stuff that I'm doing is because I love the music. I'm not doing it for any other reason.
Amazing. Well, thank you, Charlie.
Thank you.
This has been a production of We Are the Lucky Ones, a 501c3 nonprofit organization built by fans and built for fans. Keep on keeping on, take care of each other out there, and we'll see you at the show.